play the game while you listen.
What's going on here?
But this ragtag crew of adventurers is covering the problems of the average player.
Where should I begin?
Discussing the homebrews, modules, and the latest content for all things D&D.
What in God's holy name are you blathering about?
It's Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's recipes for everything.
What you're feeling is so normal and perfectly natural.
With your host, the Pirate Captain.
Everybody loves me, and I don't know why. I'm an asshole. I really am. The Pirate Captain is a dick.
Chef Bolg.
Let me take a couple steps back so I can, really get this point across.
It's bullshit!
And Loke the Bard.
Instead of making a deal with Cthulhu or, a greater devil, you found an imp who was willing to give you dark vision in exchange for a gallon of blood.
With a little mayhem, mischief, and a bit of bardic charisma, it's time for the show.
That's right, we're back at it again, boys and girls, and adventurers of all ages. Bolg, what are you doing, bud?
Are we on?
We are on. We've got a show to do. We got a show to do. Come on, get into the character, if you will.
Did somebody say a show? I could put on a show.
Nobody's allowing you to put on anything but pants. That is the rule of this one.
No. You can't see that if I'm wearing pants or not, so I don't have to wear them.
I very much say that you can, because one little slip up and there we go off of YouTube forever.
You sure?
Yes.
Oh.
I will murder you where you stand. It's Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's recipes for everything. I am the titular Pirate Captain. Along with me, my bestest buddy Bolg.
That's me.
And Loke the Bard. Yeah, keep him quiet. Unfortunately, Mr. Producer has some prior health issues, and he is out for today's episode. So you Mr. Producer fans, make sure you drop a comment so that way he can see how much you miss him. And nothing more than that, Loke. We are a D&D podcast. We talk about the rules, the different news, and all sorts of stuff coming up with D&D. And we are actually going to be breaking into some problems that people are having out in the D&D world today with today's episode, starting off with dice. Now, we've talked plenty of times in the past of different ways that people have fudged rolls, whether it's okay or not okay. I think that DMs absolutely have that kind of power that it's kind of okay to fudge a roll every now and then to see where it goes. But players who are fudging rolls, or they're using it actually, in this case, it would be loaded dice. Hold on, let me pull that up. I think the dice is really cool. Come on. It's a really cool set of dice.
The topic came from an article that the captain's pulling up right now.
It was a post on the D&D 5e group on Facebook. And they are, I guess we can post a picture of it in the description or whatever, but it's a set of bullet dice.
Yeah.
If you're going to have loaded dice, bullets are,
I think it's really cool. I think they're really cool. And we're going to read the guy's story and tell you what it is. I like different kind of dice. We are many of people who will go out and just buy dice. Well, don't you have dice at home? I do, but they're not this set of dice.
Buy them for the color, the material they're made out of.
Just the design for the numbers.
Steam Forge Games just released a Dark Souls set that I'm seriously considering, even though it's $20 shipping.
Yeah, we know that you're going to do that. So here's how it goes. The story comes in. He says, "Hello all. I just wanted to ask the questions of a DM. So my player brought a metal polyhedral bullet dice with all 7 types of die. The part trying to decide is, should I allow him to use them? He never rolls low or misses on an attack or checks. I don't think he's fudging them either, which shout out to this guy for trying to give benefit to the player. But I'm serious that he rolls 16 plus every time on them. I believe the problem with him is that they are weighted wrong and cheaply built. Or at least the set that he got. Plus, they are the standard. He probably ordered these off Temu. That's where I would, assume. Plus, they aren't standard dice. You see, he can't use them, and he uses a normal set or just suck it up when he hits everything, passes every skill check. I don't know. Should I tell him he can't use them? Okay, I read that wrong. That's my bad. Should I tell him he can't use them, or should use a normal set or just suck it up when he hits everything and passes every skill check? Heroes need to fail sometimes. That is absolutely true. though I am at a wall right now on what to do. Well, first off, you got to do a test. Roll them yourself. And if you are constantly getting certain numbers, yeah, like if one person's rolling them, there's, luck of the draw, but you definitely want to get a couple of people. Hey, man, can we try out your dice? When I used to play Hero Clicks, I had a really good set of die that had a high chance to roll sixes. And it's because of the way they were designed. Now, it was a Hero Clicks set of dice that I bought because you play with 2 6-sided dice, and it was their set of dice that you could use. And I could just roll, and they had a really good shot of sixes. I used them in tournaments. Yeah, it was kind of slimy of me to do so, but other people were using theirs. Ergo, I'm not going to be the loser in that situation. But
yeah, this also comes back to the are you trying to win D&D, or are you trying to build the story or the narrative, or how is your table playing? I could play D&D with a coin flip. It doesn't matter to me. It's a pass fail. We can do it that way.
Well, I mean, you can play with like a deck of cards. There's a story of the guys that were playing D&D in prison with a deck of cards, or even have if you ever saw Harmon Quest. Dan Harmon, the way he played D&D is that the DM did the rolls. You would tell the DM the actions, and he would roll for you. And I don't like that way. I really don't. But this right here, while dice are cool and you definitely want all these different sets, but do you really think that if you're starting to get unreasonably high lucky numbers all the time, the chances are something's wrong somewhere.
But my point was more it's not the novelty shape that's the issue. It's the non-randomized rolling consistency that's the issue. And it's easy to find out if that is actually the case. You take a piece of paper, you roll it 100, D100 D20 100 times, and theoretically each number should come up about 5 times.
Roughly.
It's gonna skew a little bit, because it is truly random. But if it comes up that of that 100 times, 16 comes up 51 times, well, you definitely got a problem.
Well, yeah. I mean, and you also have to think how does this? How about players for the dice example? How about players that want to roll 2D? He used to roll bow shot. He used to roll, instead of rolling a D6, he would roll 2 D3s, and it was never we tried to explain to him. He was like, well, 1 or 2. No, I was like, you'll never hit you'll never hit 1. That was the problem. Right. And it kind of plays into that kind of role. Having different dice, there's nothing wrong with a basic set of dice. Hey, I want to admit, I think these dice are cool. I think they're really awesome in what they do, but are they really I don't know.
We have people at our table, Bulg, who, for example, every time they roll initiative, somehow seems to be over 20.
I mean, that's just
that. But he does it with different dice. He does it in front of us. Not accusing him of it. That's the way the dice seem to fall.
The dice want me to go first, whether that's a good or a bad thing.
That's a bad thing.
Whether I'm a wizard or a barbarian, it doesn't matter. I go first.
But especially if you're in a smaller group table, where if you've got one player who every single roll somehow they're just lucky, it kind of spoils the randomness of it, and it does make you question sometimes. But I mean, we saw it last night. One of not Bulg this time, but one of our players had 4 nat 20s in a row. In a big boss fight.
You got again, 3 times.
Rolled right in front of everybody. There is obviously, random number, random things like that happen.
And sometimes you actually have DMs that'll say if you get 3 crits in a row, because the chances are very slim. I used to do the math. It was me and Bakar used to do the math on like the probabilities of stuff, but it used to be an automatic death for whatever, whether it was player to enemy or enemy to player, it was automatic death, and I kind of like that. But at the same time, with this, like if you have to as a player know, and I'm not sure how long the story was going on. He's just like, how do I? The question is like, how do I confront my player? Well, first off, it's okay to tell players no. Like I don't know where that's kind of gotten out of hand. Where you want players to stick around, but at the same time, if you're not telling them no, you're not setting good boundaries with them. It's gonna kind of be rough.
Well, and I don't think this needs to even be a confrontation because if he's the kind of person who's cheating on purpose, he's gonna still cheat even if you ban these dice. And if that cheating bothers you, you probably don't want them at your table anyway.
Yeah.
But if this is one of these things where it is just the die, unbeknownst to him, these dice aren't as random as he thought. And once he finds, like I said, if you test them, you find out that they are weighted improperly. I in most cases would think they would voluntarily stop using them because they don't want to cheat the game any more than anybody else.
No.
What's the point of playing D&D? I mean, if you're going to play D&D with loaded dice, you're not playing anymore. You're trying a scripted. You're on one of these scripted TV shows.
We know the outcome. This is why I hate prequels of any type, because I know where the story's going to go and how it has to end. So it kind of ruins. And it's not that prequels are bad. Like getting to know the story beforehand is kind of cool, but at the same time, if I had to choose between watching a prequel and watching just like an original, I'll just watch the original because I kind of like not knowing where things are going.
No.
But I don't think it's going to be a bad confrontation. Like, hey man, let's let everybody test the dice out. I doubt, and we got to take this guy's word because he's the one who posted the story. I'm telling you, if he comes out and he goes, well, hey, look, here's we've been letting them use this for several months, and you let them use it for several months, and you kind of go through and be like, all right, hey, by the way, we've all taken turns with your die, and we're all just getting 16s and above. Sorry, man, you're gonna have to cut those dice out. Like they're not welcome at the table. You as a player, you're welcome at the table, but the dice, nah, man, they got to go.
Yeah, and like I said, if the player has a problem with that, you probably don't want them at the table anyway, because they're gonna find a different way to fudge the rolls and cheat the dice. And
yeah, there's no fun to cheat in D&D. I do have a question. I kind of want to go on into more of these. There's actually really good topics in here that I think that we've kind of overlooked. This is a great page. It's the Dungeons and Dragons. It's the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition page on Facebook. That's got like 180,000 members. There's all sorts of problems and stuff like that. This actually used to be where we got a good chunk of our content, and then a lot of the good stuff or a lot of the news started coming out about the new edition, which we're not going to talk about today. I really don't want to talk about that. Like I went back and listened to some of our old episodes. We have spent a lot of time dogging Jeremy Crawford for good reason. But I kind of want to talk into some of this stuff, like DMs. What are your thoughts on quests that can't be completed, meant purely as lore and guys as unsolvable mysteries? Waste of time or good world building? Like, You think about this in the terms of like Baldur's Gate. Like if you don't do certain actions in certain ways, there gets to be parts of the story that you don't get to experience because that's just the way you played that playthrough. That doesn't mean you on another playthrough you don't ask a different question or you go a certain way or you start off in a different area. Like that's that's how you kind of build it. Now there's certain parts of it that are absolutely integral to it, like everybody's gonna go probably fight the hag, or you're gonna go find Minthra because you're trying to find the druid Haslin and stuff like that. Actually, I wonder if you could play that without actually ever rescuing Haslin.
Yeah, well, this question also comes in different forms too. Is I will often put in quests without an end that are unsolvable or a mystery, and the solution will come up during the gameplay. They'll think something that's a really cool solution, and I'll go, yeah, that was the solution the whole time.
It's like when you make the answer so obvious, and they're like, "Well, yeah, but that's too obvious."
Yeah, so I am the master of, predicting what you were going to do this whole time. and the whole, it's completely nothing to do with what I had originally drawn out. But it like the question says, it's good for world building. It's good for, new lore into the world, because it is a collaborative game. You're playing together to build the lore of this world. If a character builds somebody who is a time mage, and you don't have a god of time pre-built, well, maybe they can solve the mystery of who is the god of time, and the next campaign, that god of time may be a big figure that one of the priests are following or something.
I mean, if you have a collaborative, world like yours does, where the effects of the last campaign will affect the effects of the next campaign. But how do you what about just a simple quest? Maybe not even so much as like I'm trying to find a god or something like that. What about like?
Well, I think the spirit of this question would be, say you give your characters, you put in a plot thread that there is a vault that nobody has been able to get into that holds, supposedly untold treasures. And then legitimately, there is no way in that vault.
Yeah.
Or the vault just doesn't exist.
Ooh.
It's all a rumor. Like that's, I think, the spirit of the question is, you lay the seeds for a quest that doesn't have an ending. Right. It just annoys the shit out of them for the entire game. When after the game is done, they go, "Hey, remember that vault? How do you get in it?" And you go, "You don't. You can't. Right. It was never intended to be gotten into."
Yeah, but then you get the forever question of why. Why can't I? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And you're like,
and again, my solution to that would be, you didn't come up with a good enough way to get in. If they came up with something that was so awesome, even if I never intended them to ever be able to get in, I would let them in. So nothing is there is no what is it, the Star Trek test, the Kobayashi Maru, where I believe, like Captain Kirk, you reprogram the test so that you win. There is nothing is unsolved. It can be designed by the DM to be unsolvable, but there is always that chance that that your player will come up with something that would be so much fun and so brilliant. You have to stay open to accepting that chance.
I don't know. Kind of like
I said, it may not be part of the plan, but it will make your game better if you accept.
Well, I mean, and the answer might be no. It's okay for the answer to be no. Say, like, you have a quest that there is a legendary cryptid that everybody's been searching for centuries, and then the cleric finally uses, at the very end of the campaign, they use their god call to go, "Hey, we've been looking for this cryptid since we were level 2. Where is it?" And the god just goes, "What the fuck are you talking about? It doesn't exist at all. That is not a creature."
I mean, it's kind of like lying.
Why are you wasting your time?
Yeah, it's kind of like, telling your kids that they're Santa and stuff like that. Sorry for your kids who are listening. And just letting them run along, like this whole belief that this imaginary thing. Honestly, that seems to me like a lot of fun. Like, just they finally get to the end game and they're like, "All right, man, I got to know. Is he really bald under that hat?" You'll never know. You'll never know. But I like that, though. Like, I actually kind of more prefer that, of just like having those mysteries that really just have no answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's like real life. There are unsolved cases for a reason. They're so far gone now that there is no chance of us solving it. Yeah. There should be quests that you can't solve because the ending just doesn't exist.
There's going to be ones that are just so antithetical to, like, if your party decides they want to blow up the entire world in your
my bad.
In your campaign.
My bad a couple of times.
Yeah. It may be in your best interest to not let them successfully blow up your world. It may. Because that's the end of the campaign. But
I like it. Like actually, I'm really enjoying. Like I found more problems of the average player, kind of like what we supposed to do and solve. And I kind of found another one I thought would be really good. Let's I'm gonna pull it up for you guys. I think some of these things are actually really cool to do. I really wish that it didn't have to do this every time, but I got super grumpy with my DM this weekend. I asked the DM which enemies look the most bloodied, as a standard question that we've all asked and we receive answers to. For some reason this weekend, a party member pipes up with roll insight. I actually love that party member. One, because direct chaos towards other people is a lot of fun, but no, like I think it's actually a really good idea. Like getting answers just randomly like that. Maybe there's like a different ones for different classes too. Like if you're a war perception as a fighter, because you kind of know what bloody would look like. But I digress. We'll roll on. The player rolls and they fail the check. All of a sudden, their 6th level cleric, who is the group's healer and proficient in perception, medicine, and insight, does not have a good sense to look at enemies and determine which are healthy and which are most dead. Here's where you're getting this wrong, person. I don't have your name up here for a good point. It doesn't mean that you didn't see anything. You just in the midst of battle, this 6 seconds that you took, you were just unable to find that information within that 6 seconds. This would be a free action. If I'm a DM, this is a free action to roll insight to see which enemies are bloodied. Maybe within that 6 seconds, you just weren't able to take it in. There's a lot that can happen in 6 seconds. Anybody who's been in a fight and stuff like that would understand how long 6 seconds truly is and how short it can be. It goes on to say, there was one time weeks ago when my cleric was doing something stupid and I rolled perception that I failed, which carried over to failure to intuit my party's health, but made sense. It was my own fault, so I rolled it with good-naturedly. The situation mid-battle when a DM already answered this question for others in the group with a roll just really soured me.
Yeah, that's the problem with it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the true part of the problem, and this one's on you DMs. Yeah. DMs, you got to make sure you're applying the rules equally and fair across the board.
Yeah, consistency is important.
It absolutely is. Don't just give it to one guy and then not to the others. You absolutely have to look back and forth and go, okay, hey, who did this? How did that one appeal? And all these others. I actually like the idea of of rolling insight in midst of combat to see who's bloodied and stuff like that. Maybe even honestly, it's kind of more of like a little hardcore campaign if you do that to your own. You have to do that to your own time, because if a wizard over there is casting fireball and somebody over there is raging and the rogue's stabbing somebody from behind and the guy over there is doing all this, that's a lot going on. And to be able to go 6 seconds, be able to pull in all that information, that requires, I'm going to tell you, some Formula 1 level reflexes and insight. Like, that's all right. You're just the average cleric, bro. Like, it takes a lot.
I have no problem with the DM calling for an insight check during combat like this. But if the fact that it came from another player and not the DM is okay if the DM normally would be calling that and he just hadn't got to it yet.
I don't think that, yeah, and in this case, I think it was like, oh, hey, that's actually...
Yeah.
And here's my question, too, for this as well, because like I said, we don't have the whole story here. We just have, one side story.
Right.
Was it called at this point and then used from this point on, or was it called here and only used against the person calling it? Granted, it's not... Well, I called to see who was bloodied, and then nobody else called for it. So, of course you didn't use it then. It's more of like, okay, hey, I called to see who was bloody. I got my insight, and then we fought a little bit more, and then, Bolg, he called to see who was bloody. He won his insight, and now he gets to see it too. Kind of like that. But if you lose, you got to come back. I think it's a great free action that's not going to cost anything or any part of the game, and allows you to kind of think a little bit more about what you're doing. But I feel like there's a little bit of information missing, but I would have to side with the player on this one.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where when you're setting up your campaign, if you want a hardcore campaign where you're rolling more often for these kind of things, That's something you generally go over in the 0 session. And if it's a change you decide you want to be happening going forward, breaks between campaigns, or you try it out in a one-shot first. Just injecting it in the middle of combat without any awareness of the players is a mistake, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, as long as it starts from there and it continues on. Like if somebody's like, hey,
if before the night started, the DM said, hey, starting today, we're going to be doing this. No issues doing it that way.
I mean,
playing like normal, and then in the middle of the combat, by the way, we're changing things in the middle of combat.
I don't think it was more of like, oh, by the way, we're changing this. This is more like, oh, hey, that's actually kind of fun. Let's see where this goes. It's kind of the same way of when players, you're trying to get them to go left, and all of a sudden they just hard right. I think that's more, as long as it stays consistent, I don't mind if the rule is changed in the midst of the game. It's more along the lines of, as long it has to be from here on out. And then at the end, you kind of go do a little AAR. Hey, how'd you like the insight thing? So, it's kind of fun, Maybe I'm not going to know what's happening in the battle.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in like Bakaw and Felix oftentimes will find game-breaking things that I would want to change the rules and nerf out, And between campaigns, I will add a rule. Okay, you can't do this. Going forward, you can't force a Titan to move, even though the rules don't say that, they're immune to forced movement. It's just you're too small of a flea to move the giant world-sized Titan. Sorry, I'm not going to allow that going forward. But if the rule wasn't there prior to them, doing it the first time, I let them get away with it the first time. I think it's along those same lines where there are distinct times to make the rule changes to the game, and mid-game is not the time for that. That's just my personal opinion, though. You do what you want at your table,
right? I mean, that's going to boil down. Like I said, as long as the guy would hold it, like I said, we don't know the whole story. I would much prefer to know that, hey, look, he made this change, and then anybody who asked for it, and maybe only one player asked for it, which honestly, I think that information should be shared with that player, and then he has to share it with everybody. Yet again, free action to do so, to make the calls, because then you're just like, if I say it out, then if Bolg's over there fighting one enemy, and me and you are fighting this one, we would know the same thing about the enemy we're fighting, but Bolg wouldn't know anything about the enemy. But if it's like, hey, we rolled the insight, or Bolg rolled the insight, he got the insight, he's like, hey, this guy's mostly hurt over here. Can I get some help finishing off? And me and you would go, oh, hey, I'm going to break off and go help, Bolg. Yeah. Not that he would need it.
Actually, that was something came up in our game yesterday that, several of our players missed the days when it was very common for the DM to pass notes to the individual players. Where,
yeah.
So if they found information that the group, instead of just telling them, and then everybody knows what he knows, they would pass them a note and say, hey, this is what you find. This is what you see. And I know I'm going to be taking that to heart to bring that more back to my table. Maybe that would be the case with this, where the guy who made the insight check, say, jot 3 things down, the paladin is the bloodiest, and hand that note to him, so that only he knows, and then everybody else would have to make either the same insight check to learn the same knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with when you have technology like we do now, it's a lot easier. You could just DM, you could just private message somebody, like use Discord or stuff like that. So you don't even have to pass notes. So that would even make it even more conspicuous, because you never know who knows what.
Well, that was the example that came up at our table last night, where one of the players had a DM that would pass notes that said, this note says nothing, just act like it said something.
I love it.
Just to mess with the table.
My thing is that there's a classic line from from Predator that comes to my head every time this question comes up. Should you know if somebody is bleeding? And it's, you're hit, you're bleeding, man. I ain't got time to bleed. But that is a quick glance verified for Pancho that Jesse the Body Ventura was in fact hit and bleeding. It's just a quick glance showed that he was.
So there's a lot of times in like combat and stuff like that, like you hear these stories of people who get hit and they don't even realize that they've been hit, and they just continue fighting.
A lot of it's in real life would be a judgment call. What is worse, the skin level slash that you're bleeding out of on your stomach, versus the skin level slash that's on your inner thigh? Well, that inner thigh is probably going to be because there's a major artery in your leg there that you'll bleed out a lot faster. That's the person who's hurt more. They're both just a slash. So it's a judgment call. Who's hurt more?
Well, and that's where why the bloody mechanic is even there.
Yeah.
The bloody is a quick indicator that they are hurt.
Yeah, but how hurt is hurt?
Right. That is a question that, to me, only the person who is hurt can answer, and can only answer in a way that says, "Oh, I'm hurt real bad," or "I'm bloody, but I'm okay."
I mean,
because that's the
and also the bloody barbarian with 200 hit points and a bear totem who's taking half damage on everything is in a lot better shape than the bloody mage who's got 50 hit points and takes full damage on everything.
I mean, bump that noise. Just fight to the last drop.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to another one. It was a really good one. We'll do one more. It's gonna be an early show today. We want to get ready for Memorial Day weekend. Hearts go out to those who put the uniform on and never made it home. That is what Memorial Day is all about. I take time on my radio show to say the same thing. Three armed forces holidays. Memorial Day is the absolute saddest one. So we are going to be rolling in with this one. This will be our last question. We're going to kind of call it from here. A player comes to you, the DM, with a concern that a particular rule or mechanic in the game seems to be making no sense or poorly modeling something in a way that is impairing their immersion and enjoyment of the game, not merely getting it in the way of the PC being too powerful. After the discussion, you understand their problem, their concerns and goals, and you agree that they have a good point. What is the next step? And there's 4 options here. I want to hear what you have. The clearly voted option was interpret or change the rule to using your own judgment as a DM. So your main options are just keep things as they are, no exceptions or modifications to the rules. Look for an optional or variant rule to implement, possibly displacing the option or default rule you had in place previously. Interpret, change the rule, use your own judgment as DM. Make some occasional one-off rulings in cases where the problem is glaring, but otherwise keep the rule in place. Put one or more of these changes to a table vote or other shared decision. What say ye, crew?
I change rules all the time, like I said, but we got to be same as the earlier segment where we stay consistent. I generally don't change rules midstream. In between campaigns as we do it. A good example of this, rules that don't make sense in my world in a realistic image. I use non-Euclidean geometry in my world.
Right.
If you're hitting somebody if your range of attack is 30 feet, whether that's 30 feet in front of you, 30 feet as a diagonal, 30 feet straight up, if any of those are within 30 feet, they're within range. It doesn't matter that the hypotenuse is actually longer because it's, 30 feet out and 30 feet up would actually put them more than 30 feet away from you because a squared equals plus b squared equals c squared. That whole, basic geometry principle, in case anybody out there doesn't know what I'm talking about, does not exist in my D&D world because I ain't doing square roots.
Well, you're just taking the fun out of all of that.
To calculate distance on a battle map. If they are 30 feet out and 30 foot up, they are within 30-foot range of your weapon.
So you're more so you interpret and change the rules using your own judgment as a DM. There was somebody that probably just completely trolled him. Just keep things no exceptions or modifications to the rules, which is I think probably the worst advice in this one because even Jeremy Crawford has retconned his own stuff. Like kind of funny. So not changing that. And it would honestly be the same thing for looking for an optional or variant raw to implement, possibly displacing. I think, honestly, just using your judgment as a DM, the more you do this, the more you play this game, the easier it gets to make these calls that other people just probably wouldn't get to do. And you as a DM have more power in this world than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And you can shift it in the way you feel.
The important thing with this question that is missing is a lot of the times the things that are in there that don't make real world sense are in there for game balancing purposes.
Yes.
So when you change those things, it's going to change the balance. So you have to be aware of that when you make the changes.
You may not be able to like predict how it's going to change the balance of the world. All right, we're not the Avatar here. We're more along the lines of like mad scientists playing with plutonium for the first time, figuring out, oh, snaps, this stuff can be explosive. And that's the idea. Plutonium doesn't explode. I know. Somebody's going to be in the comments going, listen to Pirate Captain, the plutonium doesn't actually explode. I don't care. The big thing is you as the DM, and I always stand behind this, and I tell this to leaders in the Army too, please stand behind your decisions, whether they're right or wrong. If you make a decision, you make a call, you have to stand behind it. And I think that's going to be where it boils down to. You can put some of these options to a vote, but I just don't think it's going to get the same result, because I think that, players are going to vote in their best interest and not the game's best interest.
Yeah, and when it's, oh, this isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real. Well, neither is the magic in the game.
Yes. What say ye, Bolg?
I've said it. I haven't said it in a long time, but I have said it on this show many times before.
This is bullshit.
That and the rule of cool applies. Like, I will mess with the rules as I see fit in any given situation. Yes, the rules are there, but like a certain other captain said, they're more of guidelines than actual rules. Yes, the math dice and the clicky clacks are all an important part of it. But if I say, tell me how you're going to do this, and the way you explain it, I think it's a surefire way to do it, I'm just going to make sure you don't fuck it up so royally it doesn't, it doesn't happen. So, the roll is just don't roll a 1. But the rules are there to give you a sense of how things are supposed to go. That's why we're getting new additions all the time, because they're tweaking and changing and fixing things that don't exactly make sense. So a DM having the control to change rules as they see fit as the game is going is absolutely 100% within their right.
Yeah.
It even says it in the the player's handbook. The DM runs the game. They are the final say. So,
well put, my not so green but green friend. All right. That's it for us. This is just a shortened show for today. Best wishes out to Mr. Producer. I know he'll be listening to this. I do hope you get a feeling better. He didn't drink himself to death, despite what the tombstone says. That was... I didn't feel like changing it. We had some technical issues before we got started today. If you have enjoyed anything you heard, you have questions of your own you want us to answer, drop it down in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe to the channel for more D&D content like this. As always, say goodbye, Bolg.
Goodbye, Bolg.
Say goodbye, Luke.
See ya.
Happy adventures. Yeah.
You've been listening to Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's Recipes for Everything, featuring Loke the Bard. Like, follow, subscribe, and share this podcast. You can also find them on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Just search for Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's Recipes for Everything. Questions, comments, and mutiny requests can be sent to bolgandpc@gmail.com. And as always, happy adventures.